Well, good afternoon. You all right? Um, uh, Hopefully, it won't be too long now before we're able to start doing assemblies and to see you again. Well, it's probably not going to be this term, is it? But it feels like things are beginning to change a bit, and some things are changing around the way that things are being done in our country. And one piece of great news we've had is that from the 5th of July, we'll be able to have services in church again. And so you've not been able to go to school, or lots of you haven't, and have not been able to do anything inside our churches all this time of lockdown. But that's changing, and we're really pleased about that. And it's really good because this weekend we're remembering our church and the place it's got in the community. We're celebrating a patronal festival. A patron is the one who gives a name to something, and so our church is named after Peter and Paul. Your school uniform has their symbols on it, the sword and the keys, the sword from St. Paul and the keys from St. Peter. And today I was going to talk a little bit more about St. Peter, and was thinking it's funny how the church is named after someone, and you think if something so important is named after a person, they're going to be just amazing, aren't they? Only problem is Peter's a bit of a liar and he let Jesus down. Have you ever told a lie or let someone down? Have you not wanted to speak out because you might get in trouble? Have you ever let a friend down because you didn't want to get in trouble? I don't want you to answer those things, but they're questions for you. Now, you see, Peter was one of Jesus's special followers, one of his closest friends. He was one of the first that Jesus chose one day when he was out fishing with his brother Andrew. Since then, Peter had gone everywhere with Jesus, right from the start. Peter knew that Jesus was no ordinary man, and as the weeks and months went by, he began to think that perhaps Jesus was the special one sent by God to help people. In fact, it even told Jesus so. One day, Jesus asked his special followers who they thought he really was. The others had hesitated, but Peter had come right out with it and said, "You are the Messiah, the special one sent by God." And he'd said it, Jesus began to tell them what was going to happen to him, that he was going to die. Peter was shocked. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. "You aren't going to be killed? Haven't I just told you you're God's special one? No one can kill you." But Jesus told him, and he didn't understand. Peter really didn't understand. Well, now it seemed that Jesus was right again. Peter stood miserably in a courtyard, trying to keep warm by the side of the fire. Jesus had been arrested. He had been taken to the high priest's house for questioning. Peter couldn't believe it. How could Jesus have let it happen? Why hadn't God stopped the soldiers? Where were all the others? Why was he the only one of Jesus' special followers there? Mind you, Peter thought he couldn't really blame the others for running away. It had taken him all his courage just to follow at a distance. He didn't want to get arrested as well. He knew that the palace guards were like and what might happen to him. So he stood there and wondered what to do. He knew that Jesus was being questioned by the high priest and his council in the big hall upstairs. There was nothing he could do. Just then, one of the servant girls came up to where Peter was standing to warm himself by the fire. She looked at him and asked, "Weren't you one of the people with that man from Nazareth?" Peter panicked. He didn't want to be caught, so he blurted out, "I don't know what you mean. I've got nothing to do with him," and walked away from the servant girl, away from the fire and out into the porch. He'd been standing there a little while when she passed by again. He heard her say to the others, "He's one of them." By now Peter was beginning to get really frightened. And without stopping to think, he said again, only a bit louder this time, "I don't know what you mean. I've got nothing to do with him." After she'd gone, Peter stood there, unable to move, thinking hard, trying to make up his mind. What was he going to do? Should he creep quietly away and leave Jesus to his fate? That might be the safest thing to do. But how could he leave Jesus on his own? He was one of his closest friends. True, he hadn't been much use to him so far. He couldn't have done anything to stop him being arrested. In fact, he'd been a real coward back there in the Garden of Gethsemane. But even so, he couldn't just abandon him now. Could he? While he was still deep in thought, one of the other people waiting in the courtyard turned to him and said, "You're one of them, aren't you? You must be. I can tell you come from Galilee by the way you talk." This was too much for Peter. He began to swear and shouted, "I told you all, I don't know the man," and he rushed out into the courtyard. As he went, he heard a cock crowing, and he remembered back to that day when he had said that Jesus was God's special one. And Jesus told him he didn't understand. He remembered too the time he told Jesus that he'd never leave him. And Jesus had said, "You will. There'll come a day when you deny that you know me. Before the cock crows on that day, you'll have denied me 3 times. And Peter broke down and cried. Why do we think Peter behaved like that? I expect he was confused, wasn't he? He thought that Jesus was God's special one, and so how's this happening? I expect he was frightened as well, wasn't he? He didn't want to be arrested. He was frightened of the guards. Why did he not stand up for his friend, though? And what do you think he felt like when he heard the cock crow? Jesus had told him that he was going to let him down. He didn't think he would, but he did, didn't he? The funny thing about the story is it goes on, and after Jesus comes back from the dead, he asked Peter 3 times if he loved him. 1 time for each of the times that Peter had denied Jesus. And I think it's really important that Peter's able to say that no, he still loves his friend, come what may. And it's about his actions after this. You know, we all make mistakes, we do things wrong, but it's how we deal with it. And Jesus knew that Peter was going to do the right thing. And so what he did is he said, "I will give you the keys." And he gives him the keys for heaven. So I don't think he gave him real keys at all. But he said, "You'll be the person who will be able to build my church, and other people will be able to know me because of you." And so he understood that Peter made mistakes, but he said, "It's all right. You can go on from there, and you can tell the right story and do things the right way this time around." Let's just pray. Dear God, we're sorry for all the times when we've let you down, we've let our friends down, or we've let ourselves down. Hear us when we say sorry, and help us to have a new start. We thank you for Peter and for Paul and for our church in Tring. Amen. Well, I'll say goodbye now, but after I say goodbye, there'll be a song for you to sing. So bye, and hope to see some of you soon.